The Los Angeles Innocence Project has come on board to help find all the things that were ignored by the Modesto Police Department.
We heard that there had been a burglary next door.
The burglars may have abducted and killed Lacey.
There's
Oh, hell.
on a mattress in a van. Why didn't this get brought up?
This was exonerating evidence.
Convicted wife killer Scott Peterson is speaking out for the first time since his murder trial. What you saw there
Oh, hell.
was the Peacock documentary, Face to Face with
A Peacock documentary.
Scott Peterson, and it drops today.
Why should anyone want to hear
Oh, damn,
your
it was out
side of
today?
the story?
Because I didn't kill my family.
Netflix has also released a documentary earlier this month, called American Murder, Lacey Peterson, and it includes some interesting tidbits.
Oh, hell.
A detective revealed that the Peterson wanted food from In-N-Out Burger right after his arrest. John Bueller, a detective, said that they had picked him up down in San Diego area. They
You want an In-N-Out burger? What the hell?
were driving back to Modesto in the car for a while. They stopped at the old In-N-Out. And unlike what Bueller would think a normal person in this position who'd just been arrested wouldn't be very hungry, he piped up and said, "I'll take a double-double with fries and a small vanilla shake."
Oh, hell, I want a double-double.
And that, according to the detectives, was another one
Well, why would, right after you get arrested? That's crazy as hell.
of those red flags that started from the very beginning in this case against Scott Peterson.
A case that we are fortunate to have Ted Rowlands here to talk about so much of it, because Ted, you almost
Oh, Lord. Jerry, if it's skipping, just try refreshing the page.
can't talk about the Scott Peterson case without talking about your reporting, your interview of Scott Peterson. Of course, that's my favorite part of these documentaries that have all dropped. The Peacock, Hulu expected, and Netflix as theirs. You're talking about what happened as it was happening there at his house. This case that just captivated everyone's attention.
Yeah, I was there
Oh, Lord.
the day after she was reported missing, and working up in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time. And this was a case that didn't think it'd be a big deal as a missing woman, probably find her in a day or two. And it was sort of outside of our coverage area, but little did I know 20 years later, we'd be still talking about Scott Peterson as he tries to get a new trial. It's a huge long shot. And these documentaries
Oh, man.
are interesting because it's a fresh look at
Thanks for the Bears, y'all.
the case from two different executive producers. I know them both and have known them for years, and they do come at it from different perspectives.
So what do we need to be paying attention to if you're watching one versus the other?
The Netflix one is a story of the crime, but also a real love story and a story of Lacey and her family and the pain that they've gone through. And when you watch it, it's very apparent why the jury found him guilty. It's very apparent why 90% of the country thinks he's guilty, because his behavior was just off the charts strange, and that's what detectives honed in on right away. The Peacock one is more about the case, what's there, what isn't, the physical evidence, the hard evidence, the missing evidence, and that one might make you think a little bit, maybe not.
It's a case that got picked up by the LA Innocence Project. That's why we're now seeing it in the headlines now with this push for a new trial, and we're getting closer to a possibility, some decisions, right?
Y'all, why would the Los Angeles Innocence Project pick up a case like that? Do they really think that they have evidence, or do they do it for publicity, notoriety? What the heck would they do? Why would they do it? They must, somebody has to think he might be innocent, right? I don't know. I don't know those people. I don't know these people, but y'all let me know. What do you think? And y'all, we got 7 Bears left. Thank you for that. Let's do that so we get some more people in here.
Yeah, there's a piece of duct tape that was on Lacey Peterson's pants, and it is now at the lab. Both sides have representation there. It's a neutral site just outside of Los Angeles. Hey, if that comes back with something concrete, it could be a ticket for Peterson to get a new trial. Again, massive long shot.
Let's bring in someone else who can talk about this with us. Criminal defense attorney and former district attorney Matthew Mangino still standing by. From the prosecution side, Matthew, your thoughts on the possibility that we will see another Scott Peterson trial, no doubt, here on Court TV?
Well, I think it's important to kind of understand how this matter can even be back in front of the court again. Because normally in a case where there's a conviction, you have direct appeal rights that you go straight to the appellate court. And then you have certain post-conviction rights that you can also use to get a new trial. It might be ineffective assistance of counsel and other evidence. In order for this case to get back in front of the court, you need some newly discovered evidence, and maybe this duct tape is that, or other situations that let the court actually take a third or fourth look at a case. And you also have federal appeal rights, habeas corpus, when you can ask the federal court to review what the state courts did. So, I'm sure that the prosecution is confident in this case. They're confident in what they presented to the jury. They're confident that appellate courts have upheld this conviction multiple times. But, the defendant, right, if there is in fact after discovered evidence, has the right to bring that evidence back in front of the court, and the court could determine whether that evidence was prejudicial or the lack of it in his trial was prejudicial, and grant him a new trial.
His family has...
That is crazy as hell!
...stayed behind him. His sister-in-law, Janie, went to law school and has made it her life's work at some level to try to free him and help and support. He, 20 years later, does have some support. Take a listen.
I believe my brother-in-law, Scott, has been wrongfully convicted of that. He's been in prison since April of 2003. Scott has not spoken on camera about the case in those 21 years. And
Matthew, the criminals that are convicted oftentimes go to their grave saying, I didn't do it. And the net effect is it brings despair and a feeling from their families that they believe that their loved one has been incarcerated wrongly. And it's really a form of torture, isn't it?
Oh my word!
Not when someone is holding on to this. I didn't do it, and Peterson is saying he didn't do it. If in fact he did, it's unconscionable what he's put his family through.
Well, yeah, Ted, you're right. I mean, I wrote a book, The Executioner's Toll, 2010, about the death penalty, and the number of people who have gone to their on a execution gurney, still suggesting that they're not guilty, I'm sure is so difficult for the family, because they don't know, and they're fighting for their son in this case, and it's been almost obsessive over 20 years to continue this fight because he says he's not responsible. And
damn,
they've invested so much in this, and I'm sure it's painful for his family. But how about Lacey's family? How painful this is, that this case has gone on now for 20 years. And here's a guy that just won't get out of the news, who's still in our face saying, I didn't do this. Somebody find a way to prove that. And so it's a tragedy for both families, and Lacey's family especially, for having this case go on and on and on and on.
It's so true, Matthew. And you mentioned in your face. That's what we keep seeing. And the Peacock documentary is called Face to Face with Scott Peterson. Those interviews are so critical because I think people just want to understand who this person is, how he was able to get in front of TV cameras and claim innocence for all of that time. Let's take a look back to some more of this documentary, because, of course, they wanted to talk to someone who had spoken with Scott Peterson himself.
This was a beautiful...
Yes, Montreal, I know. Do you think Scott Peterson is guilty? You tell everybody. What do you think? Oh, you don't even want to look? What do you think? Is he guilty? Hello?
Pregnant, missing woman. On the surface, he did it. But how?
All right, just a bit of that there is all that we can show, Matthew. But hearing from Scott Peterson, it's important to those who may not understand this case. There's an entire generation that did not live through the Scott Peterson trial in 2002 and 2003. Talk about that part of it, Scott Peterson himself, and how people.
Can you imagine that? Like the younger generation that didn't see and hear and know about all this, just like learning about it on social media, and they have these documentaries coming out, and like this younger crowd's like, oh my God, he is innocent.
People of a different generation may even view him differently than people did at that time.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're the defense in this case, you're trying now to create a narrative for people who maybe didn't know much about this case, didn't follow it close.
Making a narrative about or making up a narrative for people who didn't see the details of this case.
Never heard of it. Young people who you know, may be listening now. So you're creating this narrative. You're almost creating.
People nowadays will believe a lot of crazy stuff.
You what?
Holy hell. Crazy stuff.
A defense for the court of public opinion. And that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to generate interest. They're trying to get people engaged. They're trying to get people to talk about this case again, because, hey, it was 20 years ago. And, you know, maybe that in some way has some influence, you know, public perception. Again, the Innocence Project working on this seems to have generated some issue. Hey, you know, if they're getting involved, you know, there must be something to this. So
right.
I think those are all important issues with regard to public relations, but we're still talking about a court case and the very specific requirements to have the court review your case again.
Right. Whit, don't worry, I got you.
Indeed. And we should always point out it's the LA Innocence Project, not the National Barry Scheck Innocence Project. Much different. The track records are much different. LA Innocence Project, relatively new. But to your point, Matthew, they did look at the case and they said, we're going to represent him from here on out, thinking that he is, as their title says, innocent. We'll have to wait and see.